Says.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Good morning. It is January 14th and 2024. And our talk today, we're not talking about a new year and what to do with this new year or what changes we might want to see. We're talking about it's a new day and a good time for a whole life review. So we're looking at questions like and most of us who attend here believe in reincarnation. So we believe we came here with a purpose to experience, be, do, or have something. And so the purpose with the life review is much like we understand people do with a near-death experience or a death experience, a real death experience, is they do a review of their life to see how they did,
No, there's one
given what they intended to do.
right. There's one important piece to that in this life review that we're going to be talking about today, is we need to do it without shame and without blame.
Right.
The tendency is for us when we do a review, unfortunately, is often to fall into the hole of the bad things or the negative things or our perception of those things that were negative. And if we're not careful, it's difficult to do any kind of a review because it's a treacherous territory when you're in the process of shame and blame.
Exactly. And what we hear from people who've had near-death experiences and can come back and talk about it is that's the way they experience their life review if they get to do that.
Without shame.
It's without shame. It's without anybody standing over their shoulder saying shame on you or anything like that. It's just interesting. And so we were just thinking at our age, certainly we want to review our life and ask certain questions. Did I do what I think I came here to came? We don't really ever know what we came here to be or do. But we may have some ideas given what we've done and what we've put our attention to. And then to ask, is there anything that you think that you might need to shift your focus on that you haven't been paying attention to? And notice I said be as well as do, because sometimes it's not who you need, what you need to do, but who you need to be.
Mm.
Perhaps kinder, more loving. Who knows what it might be? Only you could decide what you think that might be. But it's a good time because most of us who attend here have a good number of years behind us. And we want to ask ourselves, what is the best use of my time?
Yeah, some of
and
us actually
energy?
have the appearance of getting old.
I don't know how that
It's
happens.
an
but-
appearance. It's not true. But I wanted to back up a little bit. The couple of prefaces again to this review is that Albert Ellis, one of the first fathers of cognitive therapy, I love what he said. He said, we're always doing the best we can, given what we know and what we believe. We know and believe some pretty crazy stuff. We know and believe things that aren't true. But that doesn't mean that we're not doing the best we can given those beliefs. So as we change our beliefs, as we change our understanding of who we are, what we are doing, and how we are here, we can behave differently. So when we look at our life in the past, our past earlier life, what we want to look at is what was I believing, and was that forwarding my activity and the way that I want it to be forwarded, or was it slowing me down? What do I believe that's limiting me? Most of us have both positive and affirming beliefs and beliefs that hold us back, that are limiting beliefs. And so this review could include taking a look at that. And then the other thing that I wanted to say too is that Ram Dass, one of my favorite people, said, we're all here just walking each other home. And I like that because it's without judgment. We're walking each other home, and it doesn't mean that you don't get to go home if you haven't done everything right. It means, and it doesn't mean you're alone. We're here doing this together.
And also some of what we hear about these life reviews is that before you were born, there was a council of advisors deciding what was the best life for you to have this time, what you needed to experience and be and do. And so there was a purpose, not that we remember that purpose once we get here. So, and of course, it's not always to be very successful or very rich or all the best stuff. It often can be to be a good mother to a child, or
Yeah.
to be a good father for a child. It's often relational stuff. And and so it's often about love, not achievements. So we're not talking about achievements here, but even our love for our family can be constrained with problems. And one of the things that we want to look at when we look at what what have I put my attention to, what have I spent my time doing it? Do I think that meets my purpose? Is there, but a good question to ask, is there anything that I think is holding me back from doing those things? I learned long ago in this teaching that what often keeps us from doing what we think we should do is fear.
Mhm.
And there's a word that you call something when each letter stands for something. I can't
Yeah.
remember what that word is, but a good way of understanding fear is false for the F, E, evidence, A, appearing, R, real. False evidence appearing real. So obstacles that hold you back are things that frighten you, you think you're unable to do, you think there might be harm if you do them, but often it's false, it's appearances.
Mhm.
It appears that I'm unable to do this, or I would be afraid to do that. And we want to, so we look at, okay, is there any fear holding you back from what you think might be a better use of your time?
We tend, I think, to make moment-to-moment judgments about whether we're on track or not on the basis of how good do we feel, how healthy are we, how well are things going for us. And when things aren't going well or they're difficult, our assessment often is that we must be failing or doing something wrong. And I want to share an experience I had some years back with a gentleman who, at the age of 22, I think it was, suddenly developed a kind of disease that needed, well, it was going to paralyze him. And so I hypnotized him because at that time I was practicing hypnosis and working with a number of clients around traumas, and took him back into what I wanted to do was to take him back before the onset of the disease so that we could hopefully change the system and implant some ideas that would help healing. That was my idea. I took him back too far. When I say I took him back too far, I
Or
actually
he went back too
he,
far?
he went back and I said, "So what's your name?" And he gave me his name, and it was German, and he spoke with a German accent, and he said, "My English isn't very good." And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I work in a concentration camp and I like it.
Oh,
And these people need to be dead." And he was adamant about it. And so I went forward with him, and he died. And we talked about the space in between lives. And in that space in between lives, he described having a conference with some higher beings who said, "You need to understand the impact of what you've done to other people. That's part of your learning. You need to know what this is like." So he came back into the actual age that he said that he'd been in a concentration camp is when he now got this new disease. For the next year and a half, he was totally dependent on other people to take care of him, to feed him, and to move him and do everything because he was literally dying from a paralysis. And I got to see him just before he died, and he wanted to talk with me. And he said, "I've learned some things." And I said, "What?" He said, "I've learned what it was that I did in the past and why I did it and what it meant and how it hurt. And it was important for me to learn that. That's why I came here." And so why I share that story because we don't always come here to have a good time. That doesn't mean we can't have the best of times in the time that we're in. We can make the best of what we're doing, and we can ask ourselves, if this is happening to me, what is it that I could learn from it? But not how is it that I'm not having my right life or my good life? You're having the best life you could possibly have, given what you know, what you believe, and what you came here for. Now the question is, can you discover how to be more real, more authentic, more involved, more engaged in the life that you're living? Or, and this is a real risky thing, are you putting off living your life until things get better? The other piece that you mentioned, Judith, which I think there's another part to that, is one of the reasons people get stuck is not because they're afraid of doing something that's new. It's because they're so comfortable doing something that they're good at. And because they're so good at it, they can't imagine ever giving that up. And it eventually is not just a skill set or something that they do, it actually then narrows their life experience. And when we talk to people who've changed careers, who've changed what they were going to do in their lives midway, how could you do that after all those years of experience? And they talk about fear, the fear that you were talking about, false evidence appearing real. And then they go back to school or they do something and they find at the end of the road that the things they did in their other life have application, but they need to be translated. And that everything has value, no matter what it is that you do in your life. If you choose to look at it and say, what is the value? How can I have this be in favor of me rather than not?
I think a very important thing to do in a life review is to examine your life traumas
Mm,
and say, have I overcome those in the best way possible? In other words, what a lot of us do with our traumas is we try to push them away, not think about them, not even remember them, and we just want it to go away. But in fact, if you do that, you are much less likely to get to a place of forgiveness for yourself or others, perpetrators of your misery or that trauma. And what I found to get to a place where I could forgive the people that I saw as my perpetrators, was to actually go into the experience, to re-experience it, to feel the pain, to look at what was my part of it. Um, Perhaps as I was feeling taken advantage of or whatnot, I never voiced a complaint or said what I didn't like. That's my part in it. And if I didn't speak up then, why would I be speaking up now? Do you see what I mean? That was my part in it. And um, even though I may have been, it may have been perfectly reasonable to do that given the age I was or the difference in power. But nevertheless, if we go into it, sometimes with the help of a therapist, I certainly did. And then we can get to a place of understanding, perhaps even how we benefited from what resilience did we show from that situation? Did we get stronger? You know, that old saying, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And that's really quite true because you may have to develop talents that show your resilience and get to a place of forgiveness. And by forgiveness, I'm not meaning that, oh, it was okay to do that, but to actually see that that person probably was not trying to harm you or hurt you. They had needs and beliefs that they were working on or believed about themselves. But if you can get to the place that yes, it happened, no, it wasn't okay, but I don't need to hate that person. I don't need to carry the burden. It just lifts the burden off of you. We're the ones who suffer if they're people we can't forgive.
mhm.
And they may never even know we forgive them. It's not about that. But it's an important part of living your best life because your best life is free of condemnation of others.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's free of anxiety or worry or difficulties or struggles. If you're on a long walk that you chose to take and you wore your best shoes and you prepared well for that walk, it doesn't mean by the time you've reached the second or third day that your feet won't hurt. It goes with the territory. And you say, I've earned the hurt and I've earned the walk and I've earned the steps and what I've learned from the steps that I've taken. And so it's important for us not to constantly be evaluating life on the basis of how does it feel right now in terms of does that make it a good or a bad life? Look at your life and ask yourself, what am I learning? How am I benefiting from this? But I think really there's no time when you can't push the reset. And I say the reset career-wise, choosing how you're going to behave in relationship with people that you know and care about and with those that you know and don't care about. You can check that reset button and say, I don't have to carry a frustration that I had last week or last month or last year any further. I can let it go. I can start over. And that reset button is so, so powerful because many of us are reenacting a pain that has long since been forgotten by the person who, quote, caused it. And we're still suffering from it because we can't let it go. And so letting go of the past in that context and saying, what did I learn from it rather than, I can't believe that person did this to me. What did I learn from it? How have I grown, and how have I lived my life now so that it won't happen again? Some of the early lessons that weren't fatal, if we didn't learn them, could be fatal later in life. And so, don't touch that hot stove. You got your hand close to it, you almost burned it. You learned that lesson, but you also learned it for all the other hot things that you were going to get near that you didn't know. But now you know, because you have that warning, you have that forewarning that your consciousness knows there's certain things you have to be careful with because you've learned those things.
One of the tools that I've enjoyed using with people who have trouble letting go of their position that I'm right, I've been wronged, is Byron Katie's work. Byron Katie has like a four-step process of examining what grievance you have. And the first step is to ask oneself, is it true? And most people go, well, of course it's true.
I don't make stuff up.
And then the second question, how do I know it's really true?
I make some stuff up.
And the next question is, how would I feel if I believed the opposite of that?
Well, stop bringing up the past.
And so you realize when you ask yourself that question,
Yeah.
you're making yourself feel angry or upset or resentful because of this belief you have. What if you had another belief, and then you can feel, oh, that's lifted. Wow, that would be nice to stay that way. And then she asks you to turn it around. And I'm going to use a real example I had with someone because it surprised me. There are lots of ways that you can turn things around. In this case, this was a person who believed that a former partner had ruined his life by taking half his money, whatever. I don't know. He didn't go into detail, but she ruined my life. And so when we turned that around, I thought he might turn it around to, she didn't ruin my life, but he turned it around to, I ruined her life. And the question with that, is that just as true? And he said, I guess that could be just as true. She could feel that I ruined her life. Wow. And the whole thing just lifted right there for him, that he could get off his position that she had ruined, because he wasn't free to keep having a wonderful life while he decided someone had ruined his, So it was just so freeing. It was so freeing when you contemplate, could the opposite be true? Because we make up a lot of stuff
Mhm.
about what someone did to us.
Well, we're storytellers in order to be able to be meaning makers.
Yes.
And we really need to have everything that happens to us have a meaning, even if we have to make it up. But after we make up the meaning or ascribe a meaning to something that it doesn't belong to, we believe it's true.
An event happened around here recently that is such a good illustration of how people are so judgmental when they don't know the whole truth. We had a big meeting with our condo, and someone in the audience asked the person who was speaking, we didn't have any mics, would he please speak up? And he said, no, this is the loudest I can talk, get used to it. And everybody, not everybody, but several people came and said, oh, well, that was such a rude response. Well, what people didn't know is he had a throat disease that he had been having treated for 10 years. It was the loudest he could speak. That's what he said. This is as loud as it gets. But he didn't want to tell everybody his whole story. And so when they realized, oh, he wasn't being rude, he was frustrated that they couldn't hear, and he couldn't do anything about it. So, but we so often jump at and judge someone when we could give them a pass, and say, I don't know why he said that or acted that way, but maybe there's something going on.
Maybe it wasn't about me.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't about me.
Right.
So
We personalize a lot of things that are really quite impersonal. And again, a part of that is not because we want to be negative, it's because we want to protect ourselves from people like that, or that ever happening again, even if it's not actually happening, and even if it never happened. Because in our mind, I dodged a bullet this time. And we're trying to be safe. And then the cost of that kind of trying to be safe is finding fault with everyone and trying to avoid the faults and falling into them ourselves. And so in this process of the life review, what's really, really important, if you would review as much as you'd like to review, but review it from point of view of I didn't do it wrong, I didn't do it badly. I wonder what it means that I did what I did, and what can I take from that I can use now. And if we do that, it becomes a wonderful opportunity to see repeating themes, things that keep happening that invite us to learn more or go further or become really good at what we're doing, because the challenges often make us better and better and better and better at what we do. Years ago, when I was a kid, quite little, I was fascinated by snakes, and so I tried catching them. And the first thing that happened when I tried to catch a snake is the snake didn't want to get caught, so he bit me. And what I did after a little while was I learned how to catch them without getting bitten. They always wanted to bite, but they weren't angry and they weren't nasty. They were scared. And I always didn't want to get bit. The task was simply to learn from the experience how not to get bit anymore. And I learned that experience. And of course, after that, I was not interested in them anymore, so I didn't have to collect anymore. But the interesting thing for me is the meaning we ascribe to things and then how we defend that meaning. When maybe we're really off base, or maybe even if we were on base, it doesn't make any difference. Do we really need to hold on to it? Does it have future learning value?
So the main point of this, as we enter this new year, is to examine how we're spending our time, what we're doing. Do we think that's our purpose? Are we on path? Is there something else we think we might want to spend more time doing? Are we even allowing ourselves to spend
Right.
enough time in relaxation and fun? This is a good time of your life to do more of that.
Yeah. And my big question is, are you living your life, or are you waiting for a good time to start living it? And I think for many people, they're not living their best life because they're waiting for the weekend, or they're waiting for the evening, or they're waiting for their marriage, or they're waiting to graduate from school, or they're waiting for something to happen that hasn't happened yet. Well, when that happens, then we'll have a good life. And so my request for all of us, myself included, is take yourself off hold, push the reset button, and ask yourself, if I could do anything I want to do, what would that look like? And could I do some of that now? What am I doing to head in the direction that I really believe has greater value for me, that will enrich me? Let me do that.
And if you can find that, a good tool to do is make a paragraph or several sentences affirmation,
Mhm.
which is stating what you want to experience as if you already are. And read it every day when you do your grooming, and that helps you know that as a truth, not as a wish.
Mhm.
So I know many of you have experience in doing that, but it's very helpful.
If being positive is new to you, then being positive is something that you need to practice, rather than something that's alien, therefore it must not be right for you. And so being positive in every affirmation, being positive in your daily conversation with yourself, if that's new to you or seems strange to you, then it simply means you need to practice more, and the practice will make it comfortable for you. Because the negative things that we say about ourselves seem very comfortable because we're used to saying them. We've heard them 1,000 times. We've repeated them in our minds 1,000 times. So in closing, I guess what I want to say more than anything else is that your world looks an awful lot like the world you keep saying is going on around you and in you. You are actually creating this world that you're living in, and in so many more ways than even you possibly realized. How would you like to change that? And you're in a position to be able to do that, no matter how old you are.
Exactly. So you want to do a screen share?
Yeah, well, let's do that.
Yes, it's time for offertory or celebration of giving. And so, I'm showing you a Zoom. I think it's behind it, honey.
Yeah, I see that. There we go.
There
Wow,
we go.
wasn't planning on all of this. Go ahead.
So this is the time when we ask for your support for our teaching, for this teaching. And I know many of you have it set up to do it automatically monthly, and we appreciate that. That's a great way to do it. But if you are a sometimes giver, if you just go to this ways to donate, this is our website, Center for Spiritual Living. Oh, CSL, excuse me, see, cslpalmbeaches.org. That's why it can be confusing to find us, because there's so many ways to say our name. But at any rate, it is cslpalmbeaches.org, ways to donate. And if you click that top button, there are ways for you to donate. So right now, we'd like to say together this affirmation. My investment today is made with the full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so it is. So be it. Don't do that. Okay.
Where,
Well, yes.
how to get us back?
I don't know.
No, that's stop sharing. There we go. Ooh,
Woo, scared ourselves.
okay, so now we need to